What is good, Fit Family? It is your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro, and I am here to share with you all about my return to the stage in 2022. This series is called The Comeback, and every week I'm going to check in with you, let you know how I'm doing, what's going on with my macros, what's going on with my diet, what's going on with my workouts, how my body is responding to all of that, and basically just taking you with me on my journey back to the stage. So this is a don't know how many week prep yet. We haven't picked a show. So all I know is that I will be returning to the stage in 2022 and don't know when yet. So it could be a 12-week prep, it could be a 16-week prep, it could be a 24-week prep. That all remains to be seen. But right now, I just wanted to share a little bit of the backstory of what happened after I got my pro card in September of 2019 with the WBFF. And then I made my pro debut at the end of 2020 in Miami at the Miami Pro. And then took an entire year off for 2021. So let me take you on my story and share a little bit of what I've been going through and why I'm doing this series right now, what this is all about for me. So let's see, my entire life changed in the last couple of years. Before I went pro in 2019, I was working full-time in nonprofit management. I commuted to work, I worked all day in an office, I went to the gym for a couple of hours after work, drove home, and basically everything was on repeat. It was like food, training, work, training, cardio, more food, and sleep, and that was my life. So that was enough to get me the pro card, and it was my dream come true to become a WBFF pro in bikini at the time. And I caught the bug of competing. I really caught the bug of competing back in 2016. I'll tell you that story in a different video about how I even got to my pro status. But I fell in love with the sport. I absolutely fell in love with lifting, with adding muscle to my body, with changing my body composition, and seeing how far I could go in this sport. So I always wanted to compete with the WBFF. It was glitz, it was glam, it was performance. The dancer in me just absolutely loved the posing and the presentation and the fact that it's like a beauty pageant meets Victoria's Secret runway meets fitness. It really is a full production of what happens on stage. So I was completely enthralled with it, had a blast at my first WBFF show where I got my pro card in Atlanta, and then wanted to just keep going with that. For a few years before that, I had gotten a health coaching certification, and I had dabbled in health coaching, in competition prep coaching, body composition coaching, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to leave the 9-to-5 behind and build my own business and go into health and fitness full time, try to make it as a fitness model, just all the things, right? All the things many of us do when we get started with bikini competitions. So fast forward, I sold my home. I totally did the Gary Vaynerchuk thing. Sold my home. I moved in with my parents. I was 36, 37 years old. I left my career. I then jumped right back into my old career, working for my church, which I thought would be different, but it really wasn't. And less than a year after that, just before the pandemic hit, I left again. It was about 3 weeks before everything shut down in March of 2020. And I was all excited because I was going to make my pro debut in LA at the WBFF Pro-Am. Season opener, first pro show of the year of 2020. I was fully on prep from January, from New Year's Day until I guess it was mid-February when I'd already submitted my resignation and I was already working from home, just transitioning out of my job. I took on some clients and I started working with Keto Gains as a coach in their bootcamp community, coaching keto for body composition. So my dream was coming true. I was leaving behind the old life. I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in the city of Atlanta, right in the heart of the city. I could walk to my gym, my Trader Joe's, my Whole Foods, like all of my body care, body maintenance places. So everything that I was doing to keep up my physique, everything was in walking distance. It was like dream come true, right? Planned on going out to LA for the show. We were about 3 weeks out. I was teeny tiny, had been dieting down. Calories had gotten pretty low. Body fat had gotten pretty low. I was just like on fire, ready to make my pro debut. And then everything shut down. And I had a few more weeks of transitioning out of my job. And now, and at the time, you know, it didn't hit me yet. It took a few weeks. It took maybe a month into the pandemic and being home and the fact that I had to cancel, you know, the LA trip. I had photo shoots lined up. I was going to work with all of the WBFF amazing, like professional photographers. I was going to get published. It was like all the things. I'm going to finally be a published fitness model. I saw the way the year was going to unfold. And boy, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that it did not happen that way. I found myself alone in my 1-bedroom apartment the entire year by myself, struggling to get clients as a brand new coach online while everyone else is going online. Personal trainers and nutritionists and everybody else who was not practicing online was now flooding to work online. So it is feeling, I would say, if I had been honest at the time, that it was feeling very overwhelming. I was feeling a lot of imposter syndrome. I was feeling lonely and scared and unsure, and yet I was not present with those emotions at the time. So instead of being present to what was going on with me and processing through this massive change that I'd made in my life, and then watching, you know, as the last paycheck came out, those that don't know, if you work for the church, the Catholic Church, you don't get unemployment when you leave. So there was no unemployment. While everybody else was living their best life on unemployment and the extra checks coming in from the government, I was paying for a 1-bedroom apartment in the city that cost more than my old mortgage by myself and had nothing coming in aside from, you know, the little bit I was making coaching with Keto Gains and coaching a handful of one-on-one clients. So fast forward to about June, mid-June, early July of 2020, I was still kind of in this daze maybe, or fantasy land of what I thought life was going to be like. And I was, okay, I'm going to launch my first group program. Keep KBB 6-week shred, the Keto Bikini Body 6-week shred, summer shred. It was a transformation challenge. I poured everything into this. I had 9 girls in my first group. It was absolutely amazing. It was the highlight. I truly have to say it was the highlight of my year. I poured all of my knowledge, all of my wisdom, all of my love into these ladies. It was my first signature program, group program, and I had a blast. I delivered everything live. Everything was Facebook group, live Zoom calls. I just kind of created everything from scratch. So that was a blast, and probably the best month or two that I did revenue-wise for the whole year. And I was on a high. And then when it ended, boy, the low was lower than the high, the highest high. The lowest low was in the dirt low. And I still did not know that I was going through some things emotionally. It was just like very much denial happening. My days were filled with long walks around the city outside because, you know, especially all the time that the gyms were closed. That's all I could really do. I had some bands and some stuff I could do at home. I did some home workouts, but mainly it was like walking for miles aimlessly around the city in my own head, looking around and just kind of in this weird daze. I should say right after my first show got canceled, I went out and got pizza and ice cream. All I could think was, I need a cheat day. And I don't do cheat days like regularly on my regular life and in my prep life. Cheat days are not a thing for me. I've never been the person who has like the weekly refeed, the weekly cheat meal kind of thing. So, but I was in such a place that when that show got canceled, I was like, pizza and ice cream. Now, granted, I do keto. I've always done keto for my preps. And so, and I'm dairy free from years of poor gut health, which you'll see in a different video. I'll tell that whole story. But I went out and got a keto pizza and keto ice cream, which, side note, I have to say, Halo Top, white chocolate macadamia nut, keto series is the best ice cream I've ever had, period, in my life. That's saying a lot. So if you think Halo Top is not good, or let me just tell you, the keto version is different because it's really like real ice cream. They use cream. So I definitely had the dairy that night and the pizza. It was keto, but it had cheese. So anyway, like I had this big cheat meal. First time in a long time that I'd had a cheat meal. Didn't think anything of it at the time. It was like, I'm just going to buy this personal pan pizza. I'm going to buy this pint of ice cream. I'm going to let myself eat all of it. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it. And I didn't. You know, it was cool at first. And then as the year went on, I stayed on prep. I was pretty much like on prep all 2020, even though shows kept getting canceled and rescheduled and canceled and rescheduled. So every time a show was rescheduled, I'd be back on prep, and then as soon as I got canceled again, I'd go into this low, and I would just go have another cheat meal. So it was a lot of like on again, off again, essentially binge eating. It started out with just a cheat meal here and there, and then it became like my old little dessert was always a protein bowl. I would take plant-based protein powder, coconut milk or almond milk, and then add whatever toppings I liked into it, shredded coconut, you know, different things. I would make these amazing protein bowls. They were really delicious. The problem was it was really hard to stop after you have one. So I would be eating like 4 of them, 5, 6 of them at night. Talk about discomfort. Okay, for my fit peeps who love their protein shakes, you know that just one protein shake can mess you up, your gut up. It's not going to be a comfortable situation, especially plant-based proteins, which I no longer consume, the plant-based proteins, and I'll tell you why in another video. But it was very uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable night. Mess with my sleep, definitely mess with my digestion. Very, very bad habit. And so essentially it was binging. It was like binging, but I'm trying to control it with healthy foods. So that led down a darker and darker path as the year went on. Every time a show got canceled, it was like, what am I going to cheat with this time? And it would be these binges. Well, one day, out of nowhere, this thought comes up. And it's a thought I hadn't had in almost 20 years. So for those who don't know, I'm 38 years old, turning 39 in a few weeks. So when I was from about the age of 12 to 19, I was bulimic. On again, off again, but bulimic. From middle school through college, through about my junior year of college. So when I say this thought popped up in my head, it was a thought that I hadn't had in 19 years, 18, 19 years at the time. And the thought was, I'm binging on these healthy foods. I could have whatever I want if I just purge after. And I'll have to go back to the beginning of the video and put a trigger warning up, because I don't want this to trigger anyone who struggles with eating disorders. But that was the beginning of the end for me of 2020. So this was probably around June. This was before I even launched my program. And I will say that the rest of the year, I was living this dual life. It was like showing up on social media, showing up for my clients, showing up kind of for my family and friends, but not really. I really started pulling away from people, and it was very easy to do in 2020 because you're not going to see people unless you make the effort to see people. So it wasn't that difficult to do. But I became a hermit, and my life for about 6 months, from about mid-June through the rest of the year, became a cycle of getting up in the morning, and I'll say the morning, but really it was the afternoon, because what would happen is I would sleep in, I would wake up vowing that this was the day that I would stop. This is the day that I would change everything, turn everything around, go cold turkey and stop binging and purging. And then I would have a healthy meal for my first meal of the day, because I would say, this is the day I'm turning things around. I'm eating good, nutritional, nutrient-dense foods that are gonna help me be healthy. And then when dinner time rolled around, I would go for a walk. I'd be walking for miles. I would get home, and it would be like 9 or 10 at night, because it was the summer and it stayed bright out late. And really what was happening in my mind was, if I wait as long as I can to have dinner, and then I have my healthy dinner at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, then all the stores will close. Because if you remember, during the pandemic, like, all the stores were all closing really early. It's like all the grocery stores will close, and then I won't be able to get binge foods. And if I could just make it to that, then I'll be okay. I'll have a late dinner, and then I'll be okay. And inevitably what would happen every night, I would eat that late dinner. I would try to wait until midnight, because that's when the last grocery store closed. And many times I would make it, and I didn't keep anything in my apartment. And then I would go out. I would make it to maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning. And I would still be up because I ate late and I was agitated, and this habit had become so ingrained. And I'd be watching Netflix, binging a show on Netflix until 2 or 3 in the morning. And then sure enough, the binge urge would be so loud that I was tired of fighting it, and I would go to the corner store, the gas station, and buy pints of Ben & Jerry's and any crap, like the worst possible food you can get, just like the Little Debbie's snack cakes, like whatever old school, like full of sugar garbage food that they had at the corner store. And I would just get so much of it that I would go home, and it would be from like 3 a.m. until sometimes 5 or 6 in the morning of binging and purging, and sometimes multiple times a night. I have to say, like, it's incredible to be in the place where I am now, where I can say all this and not break down crying, because I could not have told this story a little over a year ago. So all that to say that 6 months of my life was that was my existence, or maybe about 5 months, because it was probably October of 2020 when I was getting desperate, and I knew that I needed to do something to change what I was doing, because I knew that it was going to hurt me. I knew enough. I mean, I have health coaching certifications. I studied and researched nutrition. I knew that what I was doing to myself was really killing me. Like, it would kill me if I didn't stop. So I went on a retreat out in Utah with some amazing people. it was really a business retreat for coaches. Shout out to the strong coach, Mike Bledsoe and fam. But they are a special group of people, always will be special to me, in that I knew that when I went out there, it wasn't just going to be about business, that there would be a lot of personal development happening at the same time. It ended up getting a lot deeper than just personal development. It was the beginning of healing childhood trauma that I didn't know I had. It was the beginning of healing some really deep wounds and things that were underlying that I had not been addressing. The easiest way to say it is my emotions. I finally got in touch with my emotions, and so I'm super grateful to them. That was October of 2020, and then after that retreat, I signed up for Training Camp for the Soul, which completely changed my life. It got deeper into all of the root causes of what was happening emotionally. And it truly, truly led to my emotional healing, which opened the way for me to tell other people about my eating disorder. So it was this time last year, January, that I was in January of 2021, that I was in Training Camp for the Soul. We finished up my birthday week, February 15th, 2021. And that was the week that I shared it with my small group. I shared it with the large group in TCS, and they pushed me to share it with other important people in my life. So I shared it with my Keto Gains coach. I shared it with my Keto Gains coaching community, the other coaches, and I shared it with my closest friends. And then I was able to share it openly on social media and just start every time I told somebody else my story, it got easier to tell. And every time I told somebody else, it became a lighter burden on my shoulders. And so ultimately this long-winded story was to share that basically 2020 for me was a full bulimia relapse that I never thought I would have for the rest of my life. And as I entered 2021, so where I am a year ago from today, was when I committed to not competing for at least a year. I didn't know how long I was going to need to be in recovery, but I was committing to my recovery 100%. So in 2021, I did not compete. I did not even think about getting on stage. There was no focus on changing or altering my body. I allowed myself to get up to the highest weight that I'd ever been in my life, even before my original transformation story, where I lost weight before I even got fit. So I was up at my highest weight ever, and I just worked on loving myself there for a very long time. It was just, I'd say probably the first 6 months of 2021 was nothing but, I'm not going to try to lose any weight. I'm not going to try to cut calories. I'm not going to try to focus on my diet. The only focus on my diet for a while was just getting back to the root of what started my transformation journey in the first place over 10 years ago, which was health. It was all about healing my gut health, healing my mental health, which I'll talk about in other videos because I'm passionate about the topic of the gut-brain connection and the vagus nerve, and the fact that what we eat really impacts our mental health as much as it affects our physiological health. So I started working with a naturopath, functional doctor online. I started working with a therapist. I continued the work on myself internally, my meditation practice, and all of the things that make me a healthy human being in a 360. And I ultimately eventually landed back in it. For a while, I even allowed myself to eat all the things, which was not necessarily healthy at all. And honestly, it kept me very addicted to carbs. Another story for another time. But ultimately, I landed again back into the keto diet. I pretty much went paleo and allowed the carbs and allowed myself, just had no restriction at all in terms of amount of food and counting, tracking, weighing. I let all of that go for a little while. And then I just focused on, putting some healthy supplements in there, healing my gut. I continued training the entire time because fitness is therapy, fitness is health. Oh gosh, I didn't even share the fact that I got COVID in November of 2020 when I made my pro debut, which I will tell a whole story about the pro debut itself, about the road to that show, and about how it actually saved me from bulimia at the time. Because when I got back from that retreat in September, October, was when I decided to commit to making my pro debut. And I knew that if I made that commitment, I would stop the binging and purging. And so that was the short-term fix. But then I had to have a plan of action for after the show because I was petrified that I would go back to it. So I'll tell you that story in another video. But that show was in Miami. It was a hotbed at the time. And when I left Miami, by the time I made it home, I was it was the sickest I'd ever felt in my life. It felt like the flu, but it just felt like a really terrible flu. So I was in bed for a very long time. And so for the entire month of December, I was out of the gym and pretty much barely could get out of bed until maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And even then, it took a real long time for my energy to come back. So not only was I healing from the bulimia, healing from the depression and anxiety that came along with it, healing from the gut problems that I'm sure were perpetuated by the bulimia. I'd had gut problems my whole life, but talk about exacerbating the problem. So trying to heal all of that at the same time from about January to really it was August of 2021 when I went on the intense gut healing protocol and I went back to keto and went back without having any binge urges because I'm now over a year recovered from having a purge. I have not had a purge in over a year. I haven't had a binge. I'm not even sure when I had my last binge. So it's been months for sure, definitely months. Can't say how many for sure. Probably at least August, because August was when I went on the intense herbal protocol, and it was I had to be very strict with what I was eating at that time to heal my gut. So gluten has been out since then, back on keto and thriving. And in December of 2021, so just a couple months, or just 1 month ago, I guess, was when I decided to try carnivore more seriously than I ever have in the past. I typically do a carnivore diet for my peak weeks for shows, maybe 1 to 2 weeks max. I had never done it for longer than that. So my boyfriend, who you'll meet in the next video, is my new coach for 2022. And he's been living carnivore for 4 years, and talk about having an expert at home on carnivore. So I said, okay, you know what? I want to give this a try. I'd seen all this amazing info out there about how healing it is for the gut, for mental health, for all the things that it's done for people. And it aligned with everything I'm trying to optimize in my life now. So I've been carnivore since about mid-December, I think, when I first started. And then, little things here and there, like I still have my coffee up until January, first week in January. I was still having like my nut pods, coconut milk, creamer in my coffee, stuff like that. So right now I'm committing to the carnivore life, and I'm not sure for how long. Maybe I decided to start out with a 30-day experiment and then working with my naturopath to also do a very careful reintroduction, like treat it like an elimination diet, do some reintroduction, see if my gut can handle things it couldn't before. So essentially 2022 is all about the comeback. I'm calling it the comeback for multiple reasons. It's going to be my return to the stage. It's going to be my return to optimal health, which I can now probably say I haven't felt since maybe my first prep. because before I ever did a prep, I was thriving on a paleo, keto, on again, off again keto, but paleo keto protocol type of lifestyle. And I felt amazing. And then once I started competing is when body image issues, body dysmorphia started coming up. The post-show blues that many competitors experience hit me hard. I did have episodes of binging in between shows over the years. And then in 2020, when bulimia hit me like a ton of bricks, it was like, whoa, I need to really take a step back and recommit to my health. So this series is all about how I'm returning to the stage and at the same time optimizing my health. So I will just preface this by saying that the goal for me is to be able to return to the stage without triggering the bulimia, without triggering the binge eating disorder, or just binging in general, without triggering the body dysmorphia and the eating disorder, the disordered thinking that leads to the disordered eating. It is an uncharted territory. I've never been in this situation before, so it's all new. This whole coming out of, recovery, I will say that I feel that I will be in recovery the rest of my life, because what 2020 taught me more than anything else is that I must be ever vigilant, that these things are driven by more than just food choices, more than just lifestyle. It's a deeper emotional wound that tends to drive these kinds of disordered behaviors. It comes from a disordered thinking pattern. So I must be ever vigilant. I must be careful with how I'm treating myself. The time that I spend de-stressing, self-care, whatever you want to call it, but it's, on my spiritual health, my mental health, my emotional health, as well as my physical health. So on this journey, I would love to take you with me and share the ups, the downs, the good, bad, and ugly, everything in between. Each video, each week, I'll just be doing an update on where I am in the process, if we've chosen a show yet, how far out I am, what's happening with my body composition. I'll do check-in videos with you guys so you can see how my physique is changing, what we're doing with my macros, what I'm doing with my food choices, whether I stay carnivore, whether I add some plant matter back in but stay keto, or what I'm doing there. So come with me on this journey, and do me a favor, if any of this is resonating with you, if you've struggled with disordered eating, with body dysmorphia, with orthorexia, with any of the body image struggles, self-image struggles, carb addiction, food addiction, any of that, drop me a comment. Let me know where you're coming from. Let me know if you've experienced any of this yourself, if you can relate to any of these feelings. And if there's anything you want to know about during this series, definitely I'll be talking about keto for competition prep, carnivore for competition prep. So if you have any questions about any of that, about why we're doing what we're doing, drop those and I will be sure to cover those on a future video. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of my community. Share this video with anyone you think could benefit from just being along on the ride with me. And I'll see you in the next video.